Hey everybody, what's happening? Welcome to Miss Adaria's Storytime on the road from the Nail House with Flavia Alaya.
Thank you, Adaria Armstrong. I'm very glad to be here.
Hello. I just wanted to say thank you for joining us here.
My distinct pleasure, I must say, to be in the Nail House too.
I know, this is a wonderful place to be, and it's a significant place to be because you are the author of these fabulous books.
Inspired by all my friends
Yes.
and all my colleagues in the work that we're doing. So I just want to give a shout out to all the people who have supported this project.
Yeah, big them up. So we're very excited. Can you do me a favor? Will you tell me what the acronym CHABA means?
Okay, that's easy enough.
And who are you to CHABA?
All right, I'm one of the founding members, actually the only surviving founding member of CHABA. My friend Rita doesn't want to admit wants me to admit that she was part of the original circuit, but I'm talking about the group that actually signed the Articles of Incorporation. And we were founded in, we sort of started thinking about it. In a way, I have to go back a little bit. May I do that?
Yes,
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the acronym CHABA
Oh, sorry about
stands
that.
for?
I thought I'd said
That
that
would be
already, but I
nice.
forgot. It's the Center for Historic American Building Arts.
Okay.
And when we began, we were me, who came with an historic preservation kind of history from Paterson, New Jersey, and two architects, local architects. Actually, one of them also a colleague of mine from North Jersey, and who had been on the Paterson Historic Preservation Commission. An immigrant from Peru, in fact, from Chile, excuse me, who was bilingual, of course, and that was really part of the understanding that when we came here, we would create an organization that had that kind of two-culture, bicultural import, because we knew already that there was a very large Hispanic population in Bridgeton. So she was essential to the project, and in fact, she was the conduit through whom the historic district guidelines were translated into Spanish. That was our first project in 2011. We incorporated in 2009. We got our a nonprofit status in 2011. So this is officially our 10th year. And neither of those two architects who started with us is with us now. But of course, the organization has continued in part, not just through me, but through the other supporters who came on board immediately because they saw that this was a project that certainly worth doing in a city that had the largest historic district in the state.
Yeah, and that's something I want to touch on. Do you have a number of buildings that, how many historic buildings are in?
Well, there are over 2,000 buildings in the historic
that's a lot.
district, or there were at least when it started. And it was a very interesting history. The historic district went back to the 1980s. Of course, it was the sort of middle of a great wave of historic preservation activity in America, in American cities at the time. The 1970s into the 1980s. So in 1983, the Bridgeton Historic District was declared, having been enumerated in all of its parts by a team of people who were brought in by the city and by the Historic Preservation Commission. I interviewed the group that had actually done the historic register nomination, and I asked them why they had included so many buildings in the historic district, and one of them said, "We just kept on going until they told us to stop," which I thought was a really wonderful concept. And apparently they told them to stop after they had accumulated more than 2,000 properties. So they all got into there might be more. Actually, there are more, because if you want to consider this one of the most thoroughgoing, vast historic districts that covers properties that go back to the late 17th to the early 18th century and continue on into the 20th century, you have a full panoply of historic properties that are in the historic district, and you could have included modernist architecture as well, because there are at least 2 really important modernist buildings in the historic district that I know of, and there could be more.
What are they? Those
the modernist ones?
Buildings.
Well, there's a building on the corner of Irving Avenue and Manfield. Is it Manfield? What is the name of that cross street? Irving Avenue, where the light is at the hospital. And that was done by a Philadelphia architect of some note, whose name escapes me right now, but if you want to incorporate it into the video, I can come up with it later. And there is a building within arm's reach, practically, of where we are right now, right up West Commerce Street. I don't know who designed it, but it is clearly designed on a Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah, I've driven very slowly by that building and looked at it. But it's funny because they were listing that for sale a few years ago.
Yes.
And in the listing, it actually claimed to be a Frank Lloyd Wright designed building. And I am a Frank Lloyd Wright amateur expert, having been to over like 75 of his houses and commercial buildings, and I was like, oh no, there's not a Frank Lloyd Wright in Bridgeton.
No, you're absolutely
I
right.
would have known. There's only
It's
like
a
4 of
copycat.
them in New Jersey, but it is modeled after.
Yes, it is a copycat building.
Kind of like those concrete block structures that he was doing.
Right, and it was designed very thoughtfully, not to sort of interfere with the Victorian facades of the West Commerce Street, which of course is a premier neighborhood of the historic district, showcasing all of these Victorian buildings that went up after the road plowed through the bluff and created a conduit to the rest of South Jersey and to Greenwich and that sort of thing. Right. But it's tucked away under kind of a hillside, that sort of a rise that blocks it from view, and then it descends into this property, and then of course the view behind the building is what the people who live there see, because the facade is very plain.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful.
And very windowless, actually.
And speaking of the bluff, isn't the home that you bought and live in and love on that bluff just down the road here? Your home is a part of that bluff.
Yes, actually, the original footprint of the house I live in, it came immediately after or shortly after the Shepherd House. The Shepherd House, of course, was on this side of the bluff.
Right.
And when the bluff was plowed through, probably in the 1850s, construction really began on West Commerce Street in a big way. But the house that I live in was already there. The descent from the bluff down to the Shepherd House involves some stone steps, you might have noticed, and that was original to the property before the walls went in. It was a little farmhouse that housed family members of the shepherds, actually. Originally, Mary Hahn, who was a shepherd, married and raised her children there. And then, of course, when the family continued, they enlarged the house. And after the road went in, the walls on the road, West Commerce Street went in, they even enlarged it more. So,
when was your house born, the oldest part of your house?
The original footprint of the house, probably in the late 1820s, like something like 1826 or 1828.
That's amazing. And what is the date of the Shepherd House? Do you know?
1791.
Wow, that's old.
Yeah, so it really goes back to the origins of the city. Before there was a city, really. It was just a kind of a place where people went through because there was a bridge. And it's the only way you could get from there to here or there to Philadelphia overland was across this bridge. Greenwich was at that time the city. Bridgeton was just like a bridge. And it wasn't until that traffic began to increase that Bridgeton enlarged and became
And established itself. And all the factories and everything that came up in the industrial era, that really increased Bridgeton's
Yes, and that was actually,
historic
Bridgeton was
ability,
already
if
100
that's
years
a
old
word.
by the time
Right.
industrial development really began.
And what projects are near and dear to CHABA that you've managed to help and accomplish over the last 10 years?
Well, one major one major project, of course, was the translation of the historic guidelines into Spanish, for which we won a Preservation New Jersey New Initiatives Award at the time, which was quite exciting. I mean, here we were just a few years old, and we were already being awarded by a statewide organization, and that really put us on the map. Since then, we have developed what we call the Home Fronts program, which is designed to offer sort of small unit teaching modules for people who want to learn how to, say, properly paint their Victorian houses, do windows, restore porches, and that sort of thing. So we have modules of sort of teaching modules that really offer opportunities for people to learn how to do historic restoration. We only got that started when we sort of moved into other activities, and so we have really not developed those modules as teaching modules as much as we'd like. But the Home Fronts program is still a sort of a featured part of our project, and we want to use the Nail House as an opportunity to demonstrate some of those techniques now. And we got invited by the city to take on the Nail House about 5 years ago, and it was, we were just beginning to develop our Home Fronts sort of showcase projects when this came aboard, and we debated whether this was what we really wanted to do. But we figured it was a way to say, this is where the historic district started.
Mm-hmm.
This is where Bridgeton became Bridgeton, and so it was an opportunity to sort of go back to the origins of the historic district and give people a lesson in why the historic district, how it unfolded, and why it was important. So that's why we took on the Nail House project, and that has really absorbed all our energy for a while.
So tell us a little bit about why, speaking of the Nail House,
Yes.
Can you please tell us about why you wanted to write this wonderful book?
Well, I'll tell you how it evolved. It really wasn't.
English and Spanish.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want to
That's
say that
okay.
again.
It's a wonderful
English.
book. In English
And in Spanish.
Espanol.
I have to tell you that it evolved. It wasn't, like a full-blown project for a children's book or an intergenerational children's book, as I call it, in my original brain. But it was a...
You want to hold it while you talk about
sure.
it?
It was actually a crowdsourcing script that I was writing for the internet. I wanted to drum up support for the project because we needed to raise funds, and there was a matching requirement for the New Jersey Historic Trust, which was very interested in helping us repair it, by the way. But and so was the city. The city came to us and said, "Would you like to take on the Nail House?" And I think I already said that the CHABA had this, like manifest destiny with the historic district, and we were not sure we wanted to focus on one historic property that was already sort of a high-featured historic property. We're into the vernacular streetscape. Mm-hmm. We're into communicating with the people who live in the historic district.
Side-by-side gingerbread houses. And
exactly. And we wanted to be part of the community, not to be like in the
museum.
Elite. Yeah, the elite, historic registered properties. So it was a bit off of our radar. But when we looked more deeply into the history of the nail mill and realized that what we were doing was creating the sort of nursery of the historic district. Because every nail that's in the historic district came out of the Cumberland Nail and Ironworks. It seemed like that was a narrative that we could get hold of and that we could run with.
And a good through line.
It was a through
To the
line,
community,
exactly,
yeah.
and it was a recognition of the workers who had worked here.
Yes.
It was a recognition of the process by which industrialization had created a new elite, a new middle class, had given people the opportunity to actually enter the middle class, to own property, to become part of a community. So it was the story that the nail house could tell that convinced us that this was something we should do. Not that we had all the means to do it. By no means did we have the means to do it. That was why we were crowdsourcing the financial part of the contribution we needed to make to the combination of funding that would go into this. It would be state funding from the New Jersey Historic Trust. It would be city funding from the city because it's a city-owned building, but we would have to raise funds from the community to show that the community cared about the place and that it was going to be a register of the investment that the people of Bridgeton themselves were making in an historic place. So I wrote this crowdsourcing script, and I don't know, it just, because of its basic simplicity, it struck me that it was also a story. And that it had, because I'm an artist by, let's say, by instinct, and to some extent by training, I began to picture how pictures would be part of this narrative. And it evolved into what became what I call an intergenerational children's book. That's why there's some big words in it. And I've actually written the cheat sheet with pictures of the big words. So anytime you want me to demonstrate that one, I'll do that too. But
I challenge my viewers.
How do you illustrate entrepreneur? That was one of my big challenges. So I had fun doing that as well. But this came along, as I said, it sort of evolved as part of the just trying to reach out to the community to make this process real. And as I said, I developed it from a crowdsourcing script into this intergenerational children's book. I thought, why not a children's book? Why not pictures? Why not script? Why not simplify it, boil it down to its essence, and make it something that will last for a while?
Did you do all the illustrations?
I did, yes.
Those are beautiful. And I really, really love the leaves. Can you tell me a little bit about the leaves?
Well, I'll tell you that we have a tree on our property that probably goes back about, 100 years maybe, that is a tulip tree. And they call it a tulip tree. I'm sure it has another tree name that my daughter will be very mad at me for not remembering because she's the educational director at the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and she knows all the names of everything. So
Latin names.
Yes, right, all of those things.
The nicknames.
But I just loved the shape of those leaves, and I decided to draw them and to create end papers that featured them.
It's beautiful.
Thank you very much.
It's really beautiful.
I really liked doing that, and I liked that being appreciated because it was one of the funnest things in the book to do.
I love it. I love how you incorporated, the nails and the pictures.
Yeah, that was part of the fun of it. It was looking up historic pictures that belonged in the narrative. And I actually went to people in the community because, by the way, I want to give a shout out to Penny Watson here, Penelope Watson, who is one of the featured founders of Watson and Henry Associates, the premier historic preservation organization company that used to live here in Bridgeton. And in fact is the reason that I'm down here, because they hired my friend the Chilean Spanish speaker
Right.
who translated the historic guidelines, and she invited me down here to come and see Bridgeton, and that's how I got in love with Bridgeton and moved here. But anyway, Penny Watson is really one of the best architectural historians in the country, and she did the nail house history for the registration of the building, and for its initial project, repair project, and it was based on that book that I did this book. I really relied on Penny Watson's, historic preservation plan for the background to this book. And many of the pictures actually were I found in that book because she had already done the research and made it easy for me.
Oh, that's lovely to incorporate that.
Yes, and so her name is included, of course, in the list of
and the
people
thank
who
yous
thank you.
on the back.
But she gets a featured moment here because she is.
All right,
she's
Penny.
really the founding mother of this project.
Hi everybody, this is Miss Adaria off camera, and I just wanted to introduce our wonderful Flavia Alaya, who actually wrote this beautiful book. She's going to read the Espanol version of the Nail House book in the Nail House. I mean, I don't think we could get any more authentic than this. Thank you, Flavia, so much for reading this for us.
Thank you, Adaria.
And you go for it, my dear.
Brava. Este pequeño edificio es enorme. La historia de la Casa de los Clavos de Bridgeton. Esto es la página del copiador. A grunge to green production. Producción grunge to green. Este pequeño edificio es enorme. Sí, esta pequeña casita en forma de T, que ellos llaman la Nail House, justo allí en la entrada a Bridgeton City Park. Apuesto a que apenas lo notaste la última vez que fuiste. Hola. Sin embargo, hace 200 años, este era uno de los lugares más poderosos en el sur de New Jersey. La creación de unos pocos de los nuevos empresarios en una nueva América y la vanguardia de la primera gran empresa industrial de Bridgeton, llamada Cumberland Nail and Iron Works. Y la compañía funcionó. Fue un trabajo muy duro. Y la compañía creció. Grande y más grande. Nuevos edificios se levantaron en ambos lados del río. Mucho trabajo y trabajadores. Muchos barcos y mucho humo. Durante casi un siglo, la compañía produjo clavos, tuberías y productos de hierro por toneladas, trayendo hierro en bruto a lugares tan lejanos como Suecia, y trabajadores que venían de lejos y de cerca ayudaron a construir edificios y barcos, granjas y puentes, muchos aún en pie. Fuera del río y la bahía, hacia las granjas y fábricas, barcazas y barcazas flotaron, cargando las cosas correctas por hacer el nuevo mundo de la industria un auge. Incluso de la compañía de los clavos resultaron nuevos empresarios. Uno fue Oberlin Smith, un genio de la ingeniería quien se unió a la compañía cuando era solo un niño. Smith aprendió tanto sobre inventar y fabricar que unos años después él empezó su propia tienda de máquinas, ya solo una milla de distancia del Cumberland Works. La compañía Ferracute Machine de Smith pronto se volvió internacionalmente famosa. Hizo los artículos metálicos de Bridgeton por todo el mundo y su poder industrial pasó el próximo siglo. Pero mientras tanto, en el 1899, los maestros de hierro de Cumberland Nail and Iron Works anunciaron que habían terminado su trabajo en Bridgeton y cerraron la compañía y dejaron muchos detrás. Además de montones y montones de clavos y muchos de esos viejos edificios industriales, estaba el romántico canal de agua y los cientos y cientos de acres de bosques, con lagos y remolinos que una vez habían suministrado el poder hídrico de la compañía. Con los años, esta cuenca hidrográfica se había convertido en el patio de recreo de la gente. No quieren perderlo.
Hello! What's happening? What's this? Welcome to craft portion of story time with your friend and favorite person named Adaria. And today we are going to do a craft that involves, what is that? Rhymes with snail. Yes, you guessed it. It's a nail. Woo! And we're going to be doing some string art today with some nails. So we wanted to continue on with our theme of nails and nail manufacturing, because we just saw, what did we just see? We saw Flavia reading her book in Espanol, at least part one of her book in Espanol, and we did part one of her interview at the Nail House. So, and here are some of her books here, Three Little Lovers of Nature, and This Little Building is Huge, the story of Bridgeton's Nail House. So what we are going to do is we're going to make a heart. Yay! We're going to make a heart here on this block of wood. Thank you to Mr. Glenn for supplying us with wood and nails. Yay! But I just wanted to show off this hammer. Look at this beauty. Isn't it gorgeous? It belonged to my great aunt Veronica. And it belonged to her father. So this hammer is, I'm going to say conservatively, I feel like I'm on the Antiques Roadshow. Conservatively, this hammer is worth about $1. No, this hammer is probably about 110 to 120 years old. What? And it's still working. Do you see the nails that they use to, and then the wood expanded up through there? It's just an all-around gorgeous hammer, and I love it. And I've personally owned it since about 1990. So it's been with me for a couple of decades. And how we are going to start this craft and what you need is a block of wood. And you need it to be thick enough. You see how thick that is? It's like 1.5 inches or so. You need it to be thick enough so that when you drive your nail down into it, it's not going to pop out the other side. Not that these would, well, they would a little bit, but you're going to put your nail only a couple of hammer hits down into the wood. So, and then what we're going to do is you're going to string some embroidery thread, this beautiful, gorgeous maroon embroidery thread around the nails. And I was also thinking, if you didn't have embroidery thread at home, if you had some yarn, you could use yarn. You could use regular string. You can even use rubber bands if you want to. But here's some other types of string that you could use. So if you happen to have it lying around at home, that's great. And it's important that it all be one piece of string, however long it is. Because otherwise you have to stop and tie a knot and tie another knot to start, and it just becomes, you know, a hassle. So it's nice if you have one long piece of string. There you go. So what I'm going to do is you can, what other people, what I've watched online is people draw a template of a heart or a shape and cut it out and then lay it down and then nail the nails right into the template. But I don't really want to do that, but you can. You can trace a heart or a circle or a square or a star, whatever shape you want, and put it down with the paper onto the piece of wood and then nail your nails into it. But I'm just going to draw a heart freehand because that's how I like to roll. So I'm just going to start here and go out one side like that. And then try to approximate the other side and come down. And look, there's your nice little heart shape. And did you see we're using pencils that change colors with the heat of your hand? Wow! So I'm going to lay this pencil here, right here, and you're going to magically watch it turn back to be hot pink. Just incredible, I tell you. So we're going to start with our anchor nail, they call it, our first nail, and I'm going to nail that right down at the bottom. So we're going to do a couple of nails, and then we're probably going to speed it up so it's not too annoying for you to watch and listen to me doing that. As he always does. Now, concerning spacing of your nails, you could probably put them about an inch apart or a little less. It depends on how many designs of thread that you want to cross over and go around with. So the more nails you use, the more intricate the thread is going to look. The less nails you use, it's going to be a little bit simpler. So I'm just going to kind of go for a medium amount of nails. And please be careful with this craft. And you want to try to get your nails as evenly as possible across the top. So you're probably going to have some assistance from a friend, an older friend, or a parent, or a caregiver, or your grandparents to do this. And be careful of your fingers. How many times have you hit your ouch? You don't want to do that. Miss Adaria has done that a couple times. And it's no fun, I tell you. Okay, so we're going to speed it up from here. Woo! Kids, look at this. Look at these nails in here. Aren't they cool? Look at it from, get the side view going. What's going on? So now you want to start with your embroidery thread. And I picked this lovely shade of maroon. And you want to tie it onto your first nail. Just make a little knot. You might want to double knot it. And you could kind of start it up here and then put it on top of your nail if you want to. That might be a little bit easier. Oop. And I'm going to double knot it just because it's the anchor, and I just want it to stay good when I'm pulling it around the nails. So I'll make sure that it doesn't come off. And also, you might want to use the nails with the heads that are a little bit wider than this, so your embroidery doesn't, your thread or string or whatever doesn't pop off, but that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to cut the tail off of this one. And we're going to start our first loop. Where should we go? I'm not sure. How about straight up? And you could wrap it around. Did you see what I did? I went up to this first one and I looped it. I looped it. And then I'll come around to this one and I'll loop that one. And then I'll go to, basically with the string art, you want to go to your opposite nail or your farthest away nail. And then you could just start doing whichever one you want. Oopsies. And you should keep a certain amount of tension on it, because it'll do just what it did to me right there. All right, I got it going around. I'm going to keep my finger on it. I'm going to go up to this one and loop that. Yeah, got a little soundtrack going on in the background there. Welcome to Bridgeton. You pretty much do whatever design you want. Just keep that tension. Keep that tension on your string, and you can, kind of give yourself some by pulling on the other side. You can go over here to this one. See how pretty that is? And just first start with all the nails that you haven't done yet. And don't forget to keep that tension on your string, because otherwise it'll just all flop down. Bring it up to that one. It's fun. Fun. I'm going to bring it over to this one, wrap it around, bring it over to this guy, and it seems like we have run out of empty nails on the other side, but that's okay because you can go back over it and go back. Let's go back to this one. All right, and then we can loop it around that last one there. And you could just keep doing this however many times you want. Whatever pattern you want, whatever design, you can go back to a nail that doesn't have a double one and bring it down to this one and say go up to that one and go back over here. And the more you do that, the more interesting that it will look. Maybe this one. There we go, look at that. I'm going to go over to this one, and which one haven't we hit over here on this side? I think this one. Okay, go back over here, and we'll kind of finish it up with this guy. And then what you want to do is you want to go around, if you want to, you can go around every single one of them on the outside, and it kind of makes like a little detail of the shape, so you'll see what it looks like in a second. It's gonna look like a heart as soon as I finish doing that, or you can go around them like that. No, I don't like that either. Here, let's see what's going on here. Okay, we wrapped that runner. Oh, I see, it was getting caught on itself, so give Miss Adaria a moment while she figures this out. Here's our heart. It's kind of like, do you ever play that game where you try to make a shape out of taking your pencil and following the different numbers with the dots? What is that called? Mr. Glenn, what's that called?
Connect the dots.
Connect the dots, that's right. For some reason, my brain could not connect the dots to connect the dots. But this is kind of like that, where you're connecting the nails. You could look at the top of the nails as dots. And we're almost done here. Oh, this is very exciting. Our heart is almost complete. And our heart is very full. Full with love and excitement at this craft, I tell you. Oh, look at that. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this really hard, and I'm going to, oop, my thread decided to jump off the table. And with one hand, I'm going to hold it like that, and I'm going to cut it right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop so that we could make another knot around here while still holding the tension, because you don't want to let it go, because then it'll all fall apart. So just give me a second to get that loop on that nail. It's a little hard with the embroidery thread, so we're going to try that one again. Just give me 1 second there, kiddies. And or whoever else is watching. Oh no, oh no, we've lost our loops. What's going on around here? Yeah, maybe embroidery thread wasn't the best, because it is like about 6 or 7 threads that are actually together. Oh, I know what we could do. All right, so we're gonna hold that and we're gonna wrap this around here, but we're gonna go under. And maybe that'll offer it a little more stability. I think that's better. Okay, yeah, so we're gonna go under for the last couple. Just wish I had something to draw it through. I guess I could use one of these nails. And then it won't kind of spring back on you if you accidentally let it go or when you're trying to make the last knot. This is Miss Adaria's first string art attempt. So bear with me there, kids. Okay, and draw that last one through, and then we'll try to make a knot with this guy. See how it's holding itself a little better because I went under? Yes, we learned something today. Okay, and while it's on there, we're going to make a loop just like that and tie it onto the last. Ta-da! And we're going to make one more knot just so we know that it's going to stay. And we made this nail house craft today in honor of Flavia and the nail house, because we love Flavia and the wonderful books that she wrote, and how much she loves Bridgeton and preserving Bridgeton's history and buildings here in town. So we heart you, Flavia Alaya. And look at our beautiful heart. Isn't that amazing? Ooh, it's really staying. It looks good. I want to see it, how it looks from there, that different angles. That's very nice. But again, you can go as many times around and across, and you could probably push the thread down, you know, because you're going to not have too much room if it starts popping up to the top, so that you can have more patterns going across. It kind of reminds me, when I was a kid, we used to play with this thing called a spirograph. And that's really cool. I think you should Google that, because that's a pretty cool thing. I wish I still had my spirograph. I would show you. But it's all about making geometric forms with your pencil and these little round cogs with notches on the end of it, and it would kind of go around a pattern. That was very cool. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope you had a wonderful time. I just wanted to show you this, Tales and Tales. You can come into the Bridgeton Library and grab this. This is all part of summer reading. And there's some really cool activities and crossword puzzles and mazes, and you can color, and all kinds of information about critters with tails, how they hold on to it, what kind of tails critters have, how they hold on to things, I should say. It's really, really cool book. So come in, get your free coloring book, register for summer reading. We'll put the summer reading information up again. It is Bridgeton, BPL, at beanstack.org. And there's also a downloadable Beanstack tracker that you can download for free from the Google Play Store or the iTunes Store. And whatever you do, please keep reading and keep making crafts and keep tuning in. And thank you so much to everybody at the Nail House, including Flavia and Maggie for letting us in. Maggie DeMarco, one of our favorite humans here at the library. And we'll see you next week with part 2 of Flavia Alaya interview in the Nail House and Flavia reading her Nail House story in Espanol. So stay tuned for that. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Woo! Love, this is so awesome. Oh my goodness, how'd you do that?